An Apache woman was marked for death until a lone rancher fought back. The twin suns of the frontier world beat down on the dry plains, making the cracked earth shimmer with heat. Dust rose in small swirling columns wherever the wind caught it, carrying the smell of smoke, sweat, and metal. Most humans avoided this place. The settlements here were sparse, small clusters of buildings made from metal, stone, and whatever wood settlers could find. But beyond them lay the wastelands, harsh, unforgiving, and dangerous. Among these lands roamed others who had lived here long before humans arrived, the Apache-like tribes. They were tall, lean, and strong, with skin the color of polished bronze and eyes that seemed to see farther than most. Their lives were tied to the land, and they knew its secrets, where water hid under rocks, where the wind whispered danger, and which paths could hide a hunter or a prey. One such woman moved cautiously through the dry grasses, her eyes scanning constantly. She was fast, skilled, and silent, but her heart was heavy. Her name was Taya, and she had been marked for death. The reason was simple. She had refused to surrender her people's land to the off-world syndicate that had slowly crept into their territory. She had rejected bribes, threats, and lies. In doing so, she became a threat. One the syndicate decided had to be eliminated. They had sent hunters, trained killers, experts in tracking and combat, armed with weapons that could punch through walls and shields alike. Taya knew she was not just fighting for her life. She was fighting for her tribe, her home, and her freedom. Her feet were sore. Her arms ached. She had barely slept in the past 3 nights, moving from shadow to shadow, trying to stay ahead of the hunters. Every rustle of grass, every snapping branch, every distant howl made her heart leap. She could not show fear, but she could not stop it either. Fear was human after all, and she was very human, even if the humans of the frontier world sometimes forgot it. Taya found a small ravine and slipped into it, her muscles coiled and ready to spring. The ravine was narrow, the walls rough and uneven, but it offered concealment. She crouched low and listened. The wind carried a faint metallic hum, the sound of drones, the kind the syndicate used to track prey. They were close. Too close. She pressed her back against the rock and allowed herself a brief moment to breathe. "They want me dead," she whispered to herself, the words tasting bitter in her mouth. "But they will not find me yet." Far across the plains, another figure watched from the ridge of a low hill. His name was Eli, a lone human rancher. He had hair the color of dry hay and eyes like steel, the kind that seemed to miss nothing. Eli was used to isolation. He had spent years raising livestock, repairing old machines, and living by his own rules. He rarely left his land and cared little for the settlements. But today he had noticed something unusual, a disturbance in the dust, too precise to be random. He had been tracking it for hours, moving quietly across the plains. His instincts, honed from years of frontier life, told him someone was running, someone in trouble. He spotted her first from a distance. Taya's figure moved with careful purpose, her every motion deliberate. She was cautious, yes, but also skilled. Eli felt a spark of recognition, not just of human skill, but of human determination. And perhaps, just perhaps, he sensed danger. He followed her at a safe distance, careful not to reveal himself. The trackers behind her would have technology, weapons, and ruthlessness. E had none of that. But humans had other strengths: ingenuity, persistence, and a stubborn refusal to give up. Eli had survived this world for decades by trusting those strengths. Taya found a small stream hidden in a rocky depression. Water ran slowly here, dark and cold. She sank to her knees and drank, careful not to splash or make a sound. Each sip strengthened her, gave her a little more life for the battle ahead. She did not notice Eli watching from a ridge hidden among the stones. Hours passed. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in streaks of orange and red. Shadows grew long and the wind cooled. Taya moved again, this time heading toward a canyon known to few outside the tribe. It was dangerous, yes, but it offered safety. The hunters would have difficulty following her there without experience or guidance. Eli followed at a distance. He had made a decision. He did not know why he felt compelled to help, only that he could not ignore the injustice he had witnessed. He knew it was dangerous. If the syndicate discovered him, they would come for him next. But the fire inside him refused to let him turn away. As night fell, Taya found a small cave hidden in the canyon walls. She slipped inside, crouching in the darkness. Her body ached, but her mind remained sharp. She knew she would have to move again soon, but for now, she was safe. Or as safe as anyone could be in a world where death followed so closely behind. Eli waited outside, hidden by shadows. He watched the entrance, ensuring no one else approached. He had no weapons that could match the syndicate's soldiers, no armor that could deflect their firepower, but he had patience and cunning, and humans, he knew, were capable of more than brute force. The night was quiet, broken only by the sounds of the desert, the soft cry of a distant animal, the whisper of wind over stone. Taya leaned back against the wall of the cave, exhausted. Her mind wandered to her tribe, scattered and frightened, unaware of her peril. She thought of the elders who had raised her, the children who played near the riverbeds, and the future that might be lost if she failed. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the canyon. Taya froze. Her hand went to the knife at her belt. Her senses were razor sharp. Footsteps, careful, deliberate, but not human. She peeked from the cave, her eyes narrowing. A small scouting drone hovered nearby, scanning the area. The syndicate was close. Eli acted quickly. He crept closer, using the rocks for cover, and found a way to disable the drone without being seen. One careful move, a twist of a lever, and the drone fell silent, its lights flickering and dying. He felt a surge of satisfaction, but also concern. This was just the beginning. Taya saw him then, a shadow moving across the canyon floor. For a moment she tensed, ready to strike, but something in his movements told her he was not a threat. Slowly she lowered her knife. Eli stepped into the cave, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, his voice steady and calm. "I can help, but you must trust me." Trust was not easy for Taya. She had learned to rely on herself, to trust no one outside her tribe. But something in the way he moved, the way he observed the canyon and the shadows, gave her hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could survive with him.
"I don't have time for strangers," she said, her voice quiet but firm.
"They want me dead. If I stay, I die."
"If I go, I die. There is no way out." Eli nodded, understanding. "There's always a way." For the first time in days, Taya allowed herself a small measure of relief. Perhaps she was not entirely alone. Perhaps a human, a stranger in these harsh lands, could help her fight back. As they spoke, the distant sound of engines reached their ears. The hunters were not far behind. Taya stiffened. Eli placed a hand on her shoulder. "They're coming," he said, "but we'll be ready." Taya nodded. She did not know if they would survive, but for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. In a world where death stalked her every step, she had found an ally, one human, alone against the syndicate, willing to fight. And That was enough. For now. The night grew darker, and the twin moons rose high over the canyon. Shadows stretched long across the rocky walls. Taya and Eli prepared for what was to come, each understanding that the next hours could decide life or death. Yet in the distance, the wind carried a strange sense of promise. Perhaps humanity, stubborn and daring, could change the rules of this frontier. Perhaps one human, refusing to look away from injustice, could make a difference. And as Taya rested against the stone, exhausted but alive, she realized something. Death had marked her, but it had not yet claimed her. Not while humans like Eli still stood in the shadows, ready to fight. For the first time in many nights, she allowed herself to believe it. The fight for survival had just begun. The night air in the canyon was sharp and cold, a thin wind cutting through the narrow passages like a knife. Taya sat crouched near the cave wall, her arms wrapped around her knees. Her heart still pounded from the long flight across the plains, from the hunters who had marked her for death. She could still feel their presence, the way they hunted with precise patience, as if the land itself betrayed her. Eli, the lone human rancher, moved quietly near the cave entrance, scanning the horizon. Though unarmed by the standards of the syndicate, he carried a sharp eye, steady hands, and a mind trained to survive in hostile lands. To him, every rock, every shadow, every whisper of wind told a story. "They'll come tonight," Taya said, her voice tense but low. "They will not give up until I am dead. And if I die, they will continue with my people." Eli nodded, his jaw tight. "Then we make sure you don't die. No one survives on hope alone." Taya's eyes narrowed. "You don't know what you're offering. Helping me put you in their sights. They will hunt you too." Eli shrugged, emotion as calm as it was fearless. "I've been hunted before," he said simply. "Not by syndicates, but by life itself. Humans survive because we fight, because we refuse to surrender. You're not the first to be hunted, and I won't let you be the last." Taya studied him, trying to see the truth behind his words. Humans often spoke of bravery, but it was rare to see it in action. Most ran from danger or took the easy way out. Eli was different. There was no hesitation in him, no fear. He had chosen a side. He had chosen her. The sound came first as a soft hum, almost drowned by the wind. Then came the crunch of rocks, careful footsteps moving across the canyon floor. Taya stiffened. The hunters had arrived. They moved deliberately, scanning the canyon walls, their drones flickering lights across the rocks. Eli held up a hand. "Stay low. Let me handle this." He slipped into the shadows, moving like a shadow himself. Taya watched, barely daring to breathe. Her instinct was to run, to hide, to fight, but she trusted him. Somehow, she knew he was capable. Eli crept behind a boulder, peering through a small gap. A pair of hunters advanced, armed with long rifles that could punch through metal walls. Their faces were hard, emotionless. They scanned the canyon like predators, confident that no prey could escape their technology. Eli studied the terrain. Rocks, narrow paths, loose stones, everything could be used. He set a trap, silently, dislodging a boulder just enough to roll when triggered. Then he waited. The hunters walked into the trap. The boulder tumbled down the slope, striking one man and knocking him off balance. His weapon discharged accidentally, drawing attention. The second hunter turned, eyes wide in shock. In that moment, Eli struck, using a hidden rope and a makeshift sling to unbalance the second man. Both hunters fell to the ground, stunned and injured. Taya could not help but watch in awe.
How? She whispered. Eli glanced back at her, a small smile on his face.
Humans fight differently, he said simply. We use our brains before our fists. The syndicate relies on power. We rely on will. The rest of the night passed in tense silence. The hunters regrouped, sending more drones to scan the canyon. But Eli's traps slowed them, scattered them, and confused them. Taya realized that survival was possible, not because they were stronger, but because humans were unpredictable. By dawn, the hunters had pulled back temporarily, uncertain how to approach the lone rancher and the woman he protected. Taya stepped out of the cave and stretched, her body aching but alive. "You are extraordinary," she said. "I thought I would die tonight." Eli shook his head. "Extraordinary is a word for the lucky."
I'm just stubborn. I don't give up.
Taya looked at him closely. There was something about him that felt human in the deepest sense. Humans were weak in many ways, yes, but they were also capable of incredible strength, courage, and determination. Perhaps she had underestimated them. The first light of the suns revealed the harsh beauty of the canyon. Dry, rocky, and unforgiving, it seemed like a world designed to crush the weak. But here they were, still standing. Kaya spoke of her people, of her tribes scattered and frightened, hiding in secret places across the plains. She told Eli about the syndicate's plans to take the land, enslave those who resisted, and erase anyone who opposed them. Her words were not full of despair, but a quiet determination. Eli listened carefully. "Then, we can't just survive," he said. "We need to fight. If we only hide, the syndicate wins. If we act, we can protect your people." Taya shook her head. "You are one man. You cannot fight them alone. You don't know the scale of their power." Eli smiled faintly. "One human can start a chain reaction. One human can start a chain reaction. One human can show others that survival is possible. And when humans see injustice, we don't just watch, we act." Taya considered this. Could it be true? Could one human, far from settlements and allies, actually make a difference? She wanted to believe it, but the doubt lingered. That evening, they moved again, leaving the cave to find a more defensible position. Eli chose a narrow ridge that overlooked the canyon floor, giving them a clear view of approaching threats. He set more traps, using the terrain, rocks, and ropes. "You plan to fight them?" Kaya asked, her voice a mix of skepticism and hope. "We fight smart," Eli said. "We don't need to match them weapon for weapon. We use what we have, what they don't expect."
Humans are clever, and sometimes clever is stronger than firepower.
Taya felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps she had been wrong to flee alone. Perhaps humans were not just weak, frail creatures. Perhaps they were exactly the kind of allies she needed. As night fell again, the syndicate's drones appeared over the canyon, searching for movement. Taya felt a surge of fear, but this time, she did not panic. She had Eli. Together, they could face whatever came next. The first drone hovered over the ridge, its sensors scanning. Eli triggered a small net trap, tangling the drone in wires and causing it to crash into the rocks. Sparks flew. Taya could not hide her astonishment. "You did that?" she asked. Eli nodded. "Humans can be creative when cornered. The syndicate expects force. They don't expect brains." The rest of the night passed in a tense game of cat and mouse. The hunters adapted, sending more scouts, more drones. But each time, Eli had a counter. Taya began to see a pattern. Humans never gave up. They found a way. Always. By dawn, the canyon was quiet again. Eli and Taya looked at the horizon. The twin suns rose over the plains, painting the world in red and gold. Taya said quietly, "You are risking your life for me."
Why? Eli's gaze did not waver.
"Because it's right. Someone marked you for death. Someone decided you should not live. Humans don't accept that. If I stand and fight for you, maybe others will see that life is worth protecting. Maybe others will see that humans do not stand aside when injustice is done." Taya felt a warmth in her chest she had not felt in a long time. She realized that survival was not just about running or hiding. It was about courage, determination, and the will to stand even when the odds were impossible. Eli spent the rest of the morning preparing their next move. They would need a safe place to hide, food, water, and a plan to reach her scattered tribe. He marked safe paths through the canyon, checked for signs of hunters, and ensured they could move quickly. Taya followed, learning from him. She observed how humans could improvise, how they could adapt to danger with quick thinking. She had underestimated them, but she would not make that mistake again. As they descended toward the canyon floor, a distant rumble reached their ears. Dust rose on the horizon. Hunters. A larger group this time. They had regrouped, and the syndicate would not give up so easily. Eli grinned faintly. Then it's time they learned humans are harder to kill than they think. Taya's heart beat faster, not with fear, but with determination. For the first time, she felt that she had a chance, not just to survive, but to fight back. The first battle had not yet begun, but the tide was already turning. With one human by her side, Taya realized that death had not marked her for certain. One human, clever, brave, and relentless, could change everything. And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe in hope. The canyon lay in silence, but it was a fragile silence. Every shadow, every wind-whipped stone could hide the hunter's next attack. Taya crouched behind a boulder, her eyes scanning the horizon. Eli was nearby, crouched low, his hands adjusting a small contraption of wires and rocks. To anyone else it might have seemed useless, but in his hands it became a weapon, a human weapon. "They're coming," Eli said quietly without looking up. His voice was calm, confident. "I can feel it. They always come when you least expect it." Taya nodded, gripping the hilt of her knife. Her tribe had taught her to fight, to survive, to hide. But this was different. This was not just survival. It was a stand. And she was not standing alone. From the ridge above, the hunters appeared. They moved with precision, their rifles slung over their shoulders, drones hovering ahead like scouts. Their leader, a tall figure in reinforced armor, gave orders in a voice that carried over the canyon. "Spread out," he commanded. "Find her. Kill the human if he interferes. Do not fail." Taya's breath caught. She had expected them, but seeing the numbers, the weapons, the confidence was terrifying. Yet she did not panic. Eli placed a hand on her shoulder. "They underestimate us," he whispered. "That's why we survive." And he was right. Humans had always survived by being underestimated. The syndicate assumed that brains alone could not defeat guns, that cleverness could not overcome sheer power. They were wrong. Eli triggered the first trap. A rope stretched across the canyon floor snapped tight as a hunter stepped on it, causing him to trip and fall into a shallow pit. Rocks and debris tumbled down, hitting another hunter, and chaos erupted among their ranks. Taya moved swiftly, her knife flashing as she disabled a hunter who had tried to flank Eli. Every movement was precise, trained, and deadly. But she realized something new. She was not just fighting for herself. She was fighting beside a human who refused to quit, a human whose mind worked faster than any weapon. Eli had prepared the battlefield. He had placed rocks to funnel the hunters into narrow paths, set tripwires to disable drones, and used reflective metal sheets to blind optics. Humans had long learned that intelligence could defeat brute force, and Eli was putting that lesson into practice. The hunters adapted, firing their rifles with deadly accuracy. Bullets tore through the canyon, striking rocks and kicking up clouds of dust. Taya ducked, rolled, and countered where she could. Each hunter who advanced faced more than just a fleeing prey. They faced humans who thought differently, who anticipated their moves. "Keep moving!" Eli shouted as he rolled a boulder down the slope, striking two hunters and sending them tumbling into the canyon floor. Humans are hard to kill when they refuse to die. Taya could not help but be impressed. She had always known humans were clever, but seeing it in action was different. This was not luck or skill alone, it was determination, willpower, and an unbreakable refusal to surrender. As the sun rose higher, dust swirled around them. The canyon echoed with shouts, gunfire, and the clash of metal. Taya fought beside Eli, no longer just a hunted woman but a warrior standing with a human who refused to yield. She felt her own strength growing, her fear transforming into focus. One hunter tried to outflank them, moving silently along a narrow ledge. Eli noticed immediately. Without hesitation, he grabbed a rock, aimed, and dislodged it. It rolled down, striking the hunter and sending him sprawling. Another hunter advanced from above, attempting to take them from a higher vantage point. Eli triggered a mirrored panel, reflecting the sun directly into the hunter's visor, blinding him and forcing him back. Taya felt hope. This was not impossible. Humans, alone or in small numbers, had always been underestimated. And here, in the canyon, they were proving it again. Hours passed. The battle turned into a dance of wits, strategy, and survival. The hunters were skilled, yes, but they were predictable. They relied on force and technology, while humans relied on brains, adaptability, and the sheer refusal to die. Taya watched Eli constantly. He never hesitated. He never panicked. He calculated every move, used every advantage, and adapted to every threat. She realized something profound. This was the essence of humans. Others could have more weapons, more numbers, more firepower, but humans had something that could never be taken away. They had the mind, the courage, and the will to fight when no one else would. At one point, the hunters tried to regroup. They formed a defensive line, hoping to overwhelm them with firepower. Eli smiled faintly. They think they can crush us. They forget. Humans never fight fair. We use everything around us, every stone, every shadow, every distraction. And they don't see it coming. He triggered another trap. A series of ropes pulled rocks down a narrow path, striking multiple hunters at once. Taya moved beside him, striking where she could, disabling weapons, and helping Eli channel the battle into paths they controlled. By midday, several hunters were incapacitated. Others hesitated, realizing that they were facing not just a woman and a human, but a force they had underestimated. Rumors had spread among their ranks. Humans were relentless. Humans never quit. And now, they were seeing it firsthand. Taya breathed heavily. Her arms ached, her legs trembled. But she did not stop. She had found an ally, yes, but she had also found something within herself, a strength she had not known existed. Humans inspired courage in ways she had never imagined. They reminded her that survival was possible, even against impossible odds. Eli paused for a moment, scanning the battlefield. "We're not done yet," he said, his eyes sharp. "They'll come again, stronger, but we'll be ready." Taya nodded. She realized she had learned more in a single day than in her lifetime alone. Humans were more than survivalists. They were strategists, thinkers, and fighters in ways the Syndicate could not comprehend. The afternoon sun beat down on the canyon. Dust hung in the air, catching the light in golden waves. The hunters regrouped far below, shaking off the losses and trying to form a new plan. They underestimated the humans again, as they always did. Eli looked at Taya. "Your people need you," he said, "but they won't survive if we don't make them believe humans are here. Humans will fight. Humans will protect. Humans will show them that death is not inevitable." Taya felt a surge of determination. "Then we fight," she said, "not just to survive, but to show them hope." The remainder of the day was spent reinforcing their positions. Eli found natural choke points in the canyon, placed more traps, and taught Taya how to use the terrain to her advantage. They moved silently, but with purpose. Every rock, every shadow, every twist in the canyon became a weapon. As the second night fell, the Syndicate's forces had been slowed but not stopped. They would return, more cautious, more determined. But Taya no longer felt fear. She felt resolve. She had seen what humans could do. She had learned that courage was contagious. And she had discovered that one human, determined and clever, could change the course of events for many. Eli sat beside her on the ridge, gazing at the horizon. "We'll survive this," he said simply. "Ah, not because we are the strongest, but because we refuse to be defeated." Taya looked at him, understanding something she had never understood before. Humans were remarkable, not for their weapons, not for their numbers, but for their spirit. One human could face a syndicate, face impossible odds, and survive. One human could change the course of events simply by refusing to surrender. For the first time, she felt not just hope, but certainty. The hunters might return, the syndicate might send reinforcements, and the odds might remain against them. But humans were hard to kill. And with one human by her side, Taya realized that death had not yet claimed her. The first strike had been theirs. The battle was far from over, but the tide was beginning to turn. She looked at Eli. "I did not believe humans could do this," she said quietly. "I did not believe anyone could face them and survive. But you are different." Eli smiled faintly. "We survive because we refuse to quit," he said, "and because sometimes standing up for someone else is worth more than anything else. Today, we survived. Tomorrow, we fight again. And the day after that, we fight harder." Taya felt her resolve solidify. She would no longer run. She would no longer hide. She would fight beside humans, learn from them, and stand with them against impossible odds. The twin moons rose over the canyon, casting pale light across the rugged landscape. Shadows stretched long and dark, but within those shadows hope had taken root. Humans had survived countless worlds, countless battles, countless hunters. They were clever, relentless, and unyielding, and now Taya would fight beside one of them, a human who refused to let death decide her fate. Together they would challenge the syndicate, defy the hunters, and prove that humans were more than they seemed. Because humans were hard to kill. The canyon was quiet at first light, but the calm was deceptive. Dust hung in the air, catching the pale light of the twin suns, and distant rumblings told of engines approaching. The syndicate had regrouped. They were bringing reinforcements, soldiers, drones, and heavy machinery, convinced that a single human and an Apache woman could not possibly resist them. Taya crouched beside Eli, her muscles tense. They had spent the past 2 days preparing traps, escape routes, and communication signals. Her confidence had grown, but even she could feel the weight of what was coming. "They think we are alone," Eli said quietly. "They don't know humans adapt. They don't know what humans can do when someone is worth saving." Taya nodded. Her people's lives depended on this fight, and she no longer feared death as she had when she first fled. Now she felt determination, fueled by the human beside her. From a ridge, Eli spotted the first signs of the syndicate's reinforcements: armored vehicles rolling across the plains, drones sweeping the canyon floor. Their numbers were overwhelming. Even seasoned soldiers might hesitate at the sight, but humans, Eli knew, relied not on sheer force. They relied on brains, creativity, and courage. He turned to Taya. "We need to show them humans are not weak. We need to make a statement. Your people need hope, and the syndicate needs to learn that humans don't back down." Taya's eyes met his. "Then we fight," she said, "not just to survive, but to show them what humans can do." The first strike came fast. Drones hovered over the canyon, scanning for movement. Soldiers advanced, confident that superior firepower would end the fight quickly. But Eli had prepared. Tripwires, rock traps, and reflective panels made the drones falter and crash. Narrow paths funneled the soldiers, forcing them into ambushes. Taya moved beside him, her blade cutting through threats with precision. She was no longer the hunted. She was a warrior, fighting with a human who refused to be defeated. The battle escalated. The syndicate adapted, sending heavier weapons and more soldiers. But humans adapted faster. Eli used the terrain, creating choke points and funneling the attackers into traps. Rocks, wires, and clever distractions neutralized their advantage. From the canyon walls, Taya's people watched, hidden but inspired. They had feared the syndicate's wrath, believing themselves powerless. Now they saw humans standing against impossible odds, and they felt hope stir in their hearts. "Look at them," Taya whispered. "They fight like humans always do. Clever, relentless." Eli's eyes were sharp. "They will join us soon."
Humans always find allies when injustice strikes.
And they did. Word had spread to nearby human settlements. Traders, miners, and wandering veterans came, drawn by reports of the syndicate's actions. They arrived quietly, armed not with fear but with determination. They brought supplies, weapons, and strategy. The syndicate's soldiers were stunned. They had expected a simple hunt, a quick elimination. Instead, they faced resistance, growing by the minute, fueled by humans who refused to surrender. Taya's people began to move as well. Inspired by the humans' courage, they joined the fight. They were skilled in their own way: stealth, archery, and knowledge of the terrain. But it was the humans who led the defense, who showed that even against overwhelming odds, organized courage could prevail. The canyon erupted into chaos. Soldiers and drones clashed with humans and Apache warriors, but humans moved differently. They used intelligence, creativity, and coordination. Each trap, each distraction, each feint was carefully calculated. Humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability was deadly. Eli shouted orders, directing his allies with calm authority. Taya fought beside him, learning from his methods. Humans were clever, but they were also inspiring. Their courage spread like wildfire, giving strength to those who had once thought they were powerless. The battle raged for hours. Soldiers and drones advanced, only to be stopped by human ingenuity. Narrow passes became killing grounds. Falling boulders, tripwires, and clever diversions struck fear into the syndicate forces. Humans did not fight with mere brute force. They fought with strategy, innovation, and relentless determination. Taya realized the truth of what she had learned in the past days. Humans were hard to kill, not because of weapons, but because of will. When humans stood for something, justice, freedom, or the protection of others, they became unstoppable. By mid-afternoon, the syndicate's forces were in disarray. Soldiers argued, commanders shouted, and drones malfunctioned in the traps humans had prepared. The attackers had the numbers, but humans had the mind. And in this canyon, the mind was stronger than the gun. Eli paused on a ridge, watching the chaos. "This is why humans survive," he said quietly. "Not because we have the biggest weapons, not because we have numbers, but because we refuse to accept that something is impossible." Taya watched him, her respect and trust for humans growing. She had seen humans underestimate themselves, underestimate others, and underestimate life itself. But she had also seen humans rise, adapt, and inspire courage where it was needed most. Her people fought with renewed hope, following her lead and Eli's guidance. Each victory, each clever trap, each deflected attack emboldened them. They were no longer hiding. They were standing, shoulder to shoulder with humans, refusing to be defeated. From afar, other human settlements observed the events via communication networks. Traders, scouts, and wanderers transmitted images and reports of the battle. The galaxy began to watch. Humans, long underestimated, were showing that they could face overwhelming power and survive. The Syndicate realized too late that this was no simple hunt. What they faced was a force they had not calculated, a human-led defense, clever, relentless, and inspiring. Each human action amplified courage among the Apache warriors. The hunters' confidence faltered. They had underestimated humans, and that mistake was proving fatal. By evening, the Syndicate was forced to retreat. The humans and Apache warriors held the canyon. Casualties were few compared to what could have been. The hunters had been stopped not by numbers, but by brains, courage, and a refusal to yield. Taya stood beside Eli on a ridge, looking down at the canyon floor. Her people were safe, for now. The hunters had been defeated, their reinforcements scattered, and in this moment she understood something profound. Humans had a power far beyond what any weapon could measure. Eli looked at her, weary but unbroken. "Today we survived. Tomorrow we may fight again. But now we have shown them, and your people, that humans do not stand aside when injustice strikes." Taya felt hope for the first time in weeks. The fight was not over, but the lesson had been learned. Humans would protect, humans would fight, and humans would inspire courage in ways no one had expected. The twin moons rose over the canyon, casting silver light on the survivors. Shadows stretched long across the rocky walls, but within those shadows hope burned bright. The humans and Apache warriors had proven that even against overwhelming odds, courage, strategy, and determination could prevail. Taya turned to Eli. "You have shown me humans are different than I thought," she said softly. "Stronger, clever, and willing to fight for what is right, Eli smiled faintly. We survive because we refuse to quit. And when we see someone in danger, we do not look away. That is why humans endure. That is why humans are hard to kill. Taya nodded. She had learned more than survival in these past days. She had learned trust, courage, and the strength of standing with someone who refused to give up. And she had seen that humans were more than just survivors. They were leaders, warriors, and inspiration for those who feared they were powerless. The canyon was quiet again, but this quiet was different. It was the quiet of victory, of hope, and of lessons learned. The galaxy was watching, whether the syndicate knew it or not. Humans had made a mark, and that mark could not be ignored. Eli looked toward the horizon. This is just the beginning, he said. They will try again. But now we have shown them humans will fight. Humans will protect. Humans will survive. Taya stood beside him, feeling strength she had not felt before. Together they had turned despair into hope. Together they had proven that even one human, alone or with allies, could change the course of events for many. And as the twin moons reflected light off the canyon walls, Taya realized a truth that had been clear all along. Humans were not just survivors. Humans were a force. Humans were hard to kill. And in this moment, the galaxy began to understand that lesson.